I'm going to be talking about the Sunday Times because they were embroiled in a global controversy yesterday, and its columnist, or now former columnist, Kevin Myers, was at the heart of it. His column, which appeared in the Irish edition of the paper and online, was headlined, "Sorry ladies, equal pay has to be earned," referring to the recent debates over the issue at the BBC and here at RTE. He went on to outline why he believed men were paid more than women. We voiced up his remarks.
Only one woman is among the top 10 best paid BBC presenters. Now, why is this? Is it because men are more charismatic performers? Because they work harder? Because they are more driven? Possibly a bit of each. The Human Resources Department, what used to be called personnel until people came to be considered as metabolising respiring form of mineral ore, will probably tell you that men usually work harder, get sick less frequently, and seldom get pregnant. But most of all, men tend to be more ambitious. They have that greyback, testosterone-powered, hierarchy-climbing id that feminised and egalitarian-obsessed legislators are increasingly trying to legislate against.
So that's what he said about equal pay. Kevin Myers, who has previously written a column in which he denied the Holocaust, then wrote this about two specific employees at the BBC.
The BBC's female presenters, apparently. I note that two of the best paid women presenters in the BBC, Claudia Winkleman and Vanessa Feltz, with whose no doubt sterling work I am tragically unacquainted, are Jewish. Good for them. Jews are not generally noted for their insistence on selling their talent for the lowest possible price, which is the most useful measure there is of inveterate, lost with all hands stupidity. I wonder, who are their agents? If they're the same ones that negotiated the pay for the women on the lower scales, then maybe the latter have found their true value in the marketplace.
The voiced up opinions there of Kevin Myers from his column in the Sunday Times yesterday. Well, that column was attacked on social media. People like J.K. Rowling, who has millions of followers on Twitter, described it as filth. Soon the story was picked up internationally by the New York Times. The Sunday Times removed the column from its website, and its parent company News UK issued a statement saying that the comments were unacceptable and should not have been published. Then the editor of the Irish edition, Frank Fitzgibbon, issued a statement apologising for the offence caused. He said he took full responsibility for what he called this error of judgment. He said his paper abhors anti-Semitism. An hour later, News UK announced that Kevin Myers would not write again for the Sunday Times and that a printed apology would be in next week's paper. We asked Frank Fitzgibbon to come on this morning's programme, but he didn't answer his phone. We are joined by Gideon Falter, who is chairman of the campaign against anti-Semitism in the UK. Mr. Falter, good morning.
Good morning.
What were your thoughts when you read Kevin Myers' column?
I started receiving reports yesterday morning, and members of my team were saying, look, there's this terribly anti-Semitic article in the Sunday Times, and I assumed it must be some kind of mistake, because the Sunday Times, as everybody knows, is a well-respected newspaper. And so I was absolutely appalled to read this. I have no idea how views like these, which are not just anti-Semitic, they're also extremely, extremely misogynist, how such views manage to pass through sub-editors and editors without anybody deciding this is not something we want to see in our pages.
I read there, I summarised what both editors of the various editions of the paper said in their apologies. What do you make of that?
Well, what we did is we spoke to News UK straight away, which owns the Sunday Times, and they were extremely embarrassed to be in this position. It seemed to me that they were quite angry that they'd been put in this position. They immediately removed the article. They issued fulsome apologies from Frank Fitzgibbon and also the editor of the Sunday Times in the UK. They also confirmed that Kevin Myers will never write for them again, and they confirmed that they'll be printing their apologies in next week's edition. So they've done all of the things that we would have liked them to do straight away. So we're pleased with them for having done that. But I think what they now need to do is look through their editorial process and figure out how on earth this was possible in the first place. Not just that these views appeared in the paper, but that Kevin Myers was ever employed by them, because as you rightly pointed out, he's written all sorts of articles, for example, claiming that Africa is giving nothing to anyone apart from AIDS, and that's a quote. Another quote, the Holocaust has become some kind of political dogma, a secular, godless religion. He's got some pretty awful views, and the fact that he's managed to remain as a veteran journalist, having published these views repeatedly over the years, and then make his way into the Sunday Times, to me shows that there is some serious lack of judgment going on within the Sunday Times about who it is that they want to employ as columnists.
Would you say he is entitled to his opinion, but he's not entitled to have it published?
I mean, the opinion that Jews are somehow so greedy or good with money that they're able to get one over on everybody else is not a legitimate view. It's a racist view. Now, of course, everybody can hold a racist view in their head, and there's no way of stopping them from doing that. But when they decide that they want to express that in public, then quite often that will be a hate crime. And in this particular case, the idea that he wanted to publish such views in the newspaper and that the newspaper wanted to help him in that endeavour is very, very worrying. These kinds of views, you might occasionally hear from the racist in the corner of the pub, but to hear them in the pages of a national newspaper, major national newspaper, is just extremely concerning.
You'll be aware, and there have been many people saying since this story broke yesterday, this is an attack on free speech. What do you say to that?
I actually haven't heard many people saying that. There are the usual voices who believe that free speech should be completely unfettered, but the problem that, as we know with free speech, is that it must not be an absolute. No freedom must be absolute. When you've got freedom, you've got to use it in such a way that you don't infringe on the freedoms of others. And Jewish people ought to be able to be free to go about their lives without this kind of abuse going on. And so what I see is an abuse of his free speech here. We see Kevin Myers using his free speech to attack a group. Now, the fact is he's done it. Nobody's going to prosecute him for it. What instead has happened is that there has been free speech back. There's been counter speech. He has made his views apparent. Everybody else in the UK and Ireland appears to have made their view apparent, which is that they think Kevin Myers' view is abhorrent and disgusting. And the Sunday Times has used its freedom to sack him as a journalist, and I suspect that this may well be the end of his career. I don't imagine that any newspaper, any respectable newspaper, will want to employ him and have his views reproduced in their pages. And
you have complained to the Office of the Press Ombudsman here in Ireland, as well as the Independent Press Standards Organisation in the UK, with a view to what?
We think that the editorial process here needs to be looked at. We don't expect further apologies from the Sunday Times. They've done exactly what they should have done in this situation. They did it relatively quickly, so we don't have an issue there. But what we do think is that they may need some help in reviewing their editorial processes to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again, because also, remember, it's not just Jews that Kevin Myers has expressed such vile opinions about. And we need to make sure that if they've got an editorial process which allows people like that to speak out in their pages, then we think that the bodies which are actually industry bodies of the media and of the press ought to become involved in making sure that the editorial standards are tightened up and improved.
Indeed, and much was made of the editor of the Irish edition's statement when he apologised and said that his paper abhors anti-Semitism, but there was no reference made to the sexism or the misogyny contained in the article. Do you think this issue would have gone global in the way it did, but for the anti-Semitic nature of it? The sexism alone would not have done it.
I think that it's difficult to speculate. It's impossible to know what would have happened. He may have got away with it. It's also possible to say, if he was just anti-Semitic and not misogynist, would it have gained the same attention? It's impossible to say, really. The fact is that he was both anti-Semitic and misogynist in his article, and he seems to have done so, reading his words pretty deliberately and almost with a certain amount of brazen joy. So it's impossible to know what would have happened if he'd left out the anti-Semitism or the misogyny rather than including both.
Well, thank you very much for taking our call this morning. Gideon Falter, he's chairman of the campaign against anti-Semitism in the UK. You're listening to Morning Ireland. It's 8:30.